Have you ever talked yourself out of something you really wanted? Not because you weren't capable, not because you weren't qualified, not because you didn't have the time, but because deep down you knew that if you became too successful, too confident, too independent, or too happy, there would be consequences with someone in your family. Maybe you've never said it out loud. Maybe you didn't even realize you were doing it. But how many dreams have been put on hold? Businesses never started, promotions never pursued, books never written, or opportunities never taken, because you were worried about how a family member would react. I don't think this is a men's issue or a woman's issue, because I've seen women who couldn't handle their husband's success. I've also seen men who couldn't handle their wife's success. I've seen it play out between parents and their children, between siblings, between family members who love each other deeply and still can't seem to let each other enjoy success. So the question is, why do you stay small to keep the peace in your family relationships? Welcome to Lessons for Life with Grandma Kate. If you're done with people-pleasing, tired of repeating the same patterns, and ready to learn what healthy relationships actually look like, you're in the right place. I get it. I was there too. At 65, I started learning the things I wish I'd known decades ago, like how to see the patterns, why we keep repeating them, and how to finally treat ourselves with the respect we always deserved. And somewhere along the way, I realized something that changed everything. When we don't understand our patterns, we pass them on. Not because we're bad parents, but because no one ever showed us anything different. That realization drives everything I do. And if you'd like the See the Pattern Now What cheat sheet for today's episode, join my free weekly email community. Each week, I'll help you name the pattern, understand what it looks like, and give you simple next steps to move forward. Find the link in the show notes or visit lessonsforlifewithgrandmakate.com. Like a lighthouse, steady and strong, let's all shine a little brighter today. I think putting our dreams on hold happens more often than we realize because it doesn't look like control. It's subtle. It looks like compromise. It looks like being considerate. It looks like not wanting to rock the boat. Over time, you learn that certain things create tension, such as talking about a new goal, celebrating a win, making more money, getting recognition, having something that belongs to you. So you start monitoring yourself, not all at once. A small change here, a small change there, until one day you realize you aren't making decisions based on what you want. You're making decisions based on what will keep other people comfortable. There's a name for this pattern. It's called self-suppression, and it's one of the quietest forms of self-abandonment there is, because it doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel like a crisis. It just feels like being reasonable, being flexible, being the bigger person. But here's what self-suppression actually costs. It costs you the version of yourself you were becoming. It costs your relationships the honesty they need to survive. It costs your children the model of what healthy ambition and partnership actually look like. And it costs the world whatever you were meant to bring to it. Because the cost of self-suppression doesn't just affect you. It is carried forward through family and through generations, quietly, invisibly, by a woman who puts her business idea on the shelf in her 30s and tells herself she'll come back to it, but she never does. By a man who walks away from a promotion because his wife made it clear, without ever saying it directly, that his success was a problem. And 20 years later, neither of them can explain the resentment that lives inside them. They just know something was lost. They just don't know how to name it. Self-suppression doesn't create peace. It creates distance. It creates resentment that has nowhere to go. And eventually, it creates a version of you you no longer recognize. For most of my life, I stayed small, not because I wasn't capable, But because I had learned very early that being too happy, too confident, or too successful made people in my childhood uncomfortable. And when those people were uncomfortable, I paid for it. And here's the thing. I brought this behavior into my adult life. Staying small felt completely normal. It felt like just the way things were. So I learned to manage myself. I would start to rise, feel the reaction coming, and shrink back down again. Not all at once, just enough to ease the tension. I started businesses. I would get momentum, start making sales, start to feel like maybe this was actually working. And then something would happen. A comment, a reaction, a subtle message that I was getting too big for my boots. And I would quit. I would tell myself I just wasn't good at business, that it wasn't for me. I would lose weight, start to feel good in my body, confident, alive. And then a single comment would send me straight back to emotional eating. Because feeling good about myself felt dangerous in certain relationships, like I needed to be brought back down. Year after year, decade after decade, the same pattern. I would try. I would start to succeed. And then I would stop. Until I was 65 years old and I said, enough. I'm done. I will deal with whatever comes. I'm not shrinking anymore. I don't want to reach the end of my life and realize I never actually lived it. The truth is, I still don't have the support I want. The pattern is still there, and some days I feel like the old pull to make myself smaller, to monitor myself, and to keep the peace the way I always have. But I recognize it now. I can see self-suppression for what it is. It's not kindness, not flexibility, not keeping the peace. It's self-abandonment, and I'm not going to abandon myself anymore. At some point, you have to decide that your life belongs to you. Your success belongs to you. Your growth belongs to you. And no one else gets to decide how much of yourself you're allowed to become. Here are 5 life lessons for the person who is done staying small. Life lesson number 1. Self-awareness is where it starts. You can't change a pattern you haven't recognized yet. And self-suppression is one of the hardest patterns to see because it doesn't feel like suppression. It feels like being reasonable. Think about the last time you talked yourself out of something. Maybe it was applying for something, starting something, saying yes to an opportunity that genuinely excited you. And ask yourself honestly, was the real reason that you weren't ready? Or was it that you already knew somewhere deep down how a family member would react if you succeeded? That's the question we're sitting with, because self-suppression is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up as procrastination, as playing it safe, as telling yourself the timing isn't right. Life lesson number 2. You were conditioned. Now you can recondition yourself. This isn't about seeking approval. It's about what happened when you started to get some success. You tried, you got a reaction, so you pulled back. You tried again, same reaction, and over time, your mind and body just learned, don't go there. Not because you wanted anyone's permission, but because the cost of their reaction felt too high. That's conditioning, and it happens gradually, quietly, in the space between who you were becoming and who you learned it was safe to be. The important thing to understand is this. You didn't choose this consciously. It was a response to your environment. It made complete sense given what you were dealing with. But the environment that created that response may no longer be your whole world. What protected you in one season of your life may now be the very thing holding you back. You can recondition yourself. It starts with noticing the moment you feel the pull to shrink. Pausing there and asking, Is this actually dangerous? Or does it just feel like the old familiar pattern? And life lesson number 3, staying small doesn't create real peace. I want to gently push back on something we tell ourselves. We stay small because we think it keeps the peace. And in the short term, maybe it does. The tension goes away, the reaction doesn't come, things feel calm. But that's not peace. That's avoidance. And there's a cost to it. When you consistently suppress who you are to manage someone else's comfort, 2 things happen. Number 1, resentment starts to grow. Quietly, slowly, in the space where your real self used to be. And second, the relationship loses the one thing it actually needs to survive: honesty. Real peace doesn't come from one person making themselves smaller. It comes from the ability to celebrate each other's growth without feeling threatened by it. If you've been keeping the peace by staying small, ask yourself, how long has that been working? And what has it actually cost you? Life lesson number 4. A strong relationship is built on mutual respect. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect. That means both people have the right to grow, to succeed, to take up space, and to be celebrated for it. Not just tolerated, celebrated. A relationship is not a competition. Your success does not take anything away from the people who love you. Your confidence does not diminish theirs. Your growth does not make them less valuable. In a relationship built on mutual respect, one person's win adds to the connection. It doesn't threaten it. If the dynamic in an important relationship requires you to stay small so no one else can feel secure, that is worth paying attention to, not as a judgment, but as information, because it's telling you something important about what's driving that dynamic and what needs to change. The strongest relationships are the ones where both people are becoming more of who they are, not less, where there's enough room for 2 full human beings to show up, grow, stumble, and succeed. That's what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like. And life lesson number 5, the world needs what you have to offer. This is the one that stays with me most. Every time you suppress yourself to keep the peace, something is lost. Not just for you, but for all of us. The book that never gets written, the business that never gets started, the conversation that never happens because you decided it was safer to stay quiet. The child who grew up watching their parent make themselves smaller and learned, without a single word being spoken, that this is just what you do. And I think about the ripple effect of that. How many generations have carried this pattern forward without ever questioning it? How many people are living a fraction of the life they were meant to live because somewhere along the way they learned that their success made their loved ones uncomfortable? You have something to offer. Your experience, your perspective, your voice, your work. And every time you choose to show up fully and refuse to stay small, you give someone else quiet permission to do the same. That matters more than you know. One of the most powerful things you can do for your children is to let them see you take up space. When they watch you shrink yourself, monitor your excitement, or quietly walk away from something you wanted, they don't see compromise. They see a blueprint. They learn, without a single word being spoken, that this is what you do when someone important to you is uncomfortable with your growth. And when they see you pursue something that matters to you, even when it's hard, even when not everyone is cheering you on, they learn something completely different. They learn that their dreams are worth protecting. They learn that someone else's discomfort doesn't mean they have to stay small. They learn that success is not something to apologize for. And that is how we raise children who who never have to spend decades unlearning what you are unlearning right now. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What if the people in my life really don't want me to succeed? What if they really are threatened by my confidence, my happiness, or my success? What if every time I try to grow, they push back? The truth is, some people will. Some people benefit from the version of you that stays small, the version that doesn't challenge the family system, the version that doesn't outgrow old roles, the version that keeps making everyone else comfortable. And if you spent years in a relationship with someone who needs to be the center of attention, who needs to be right, who needs to feel superior, or who struggles when other people shine, your success may create friction. That's real, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But here's what I've learned. The answer isn't to stop succeeding. The answer is to stop using their discomfort as evidence that you're doing something wrong, because their reaction tells you something about them. It doesn't define what's possible for you. Some relationships will grow with you. Some relationships will resist your success. That's a reality many of us have to face. But no matter what someone else chooses, you still have a choice. You can continue shrinking yourself to keep everyone comfortable, or you can start building a life that is lined with who you are. What dream have you put on hold? What opportunity have you convinced yourself isn't the right time? What part of yourself have you been monitoring to keep everyone else comfortable? Because here's what I've learned. Staying small doesn't actually protect a relationship. It doesn't create the connection we're hoping for. It doesn't create the peace we're hoping for either. It just slowly takes us further away from ourselves. And eventually, we wake up wondering where that person went. The good news is that self-suppression is learned, which means it can be unlearned, one decision at a time, one conversation at a time, one small act of courage at a time. You don't have to become a different person. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You simply have to stop abandoning yourself. Because your success is not a threat. Your voice is not a threat. Your dreams are not a threat. Healthy relationships don't require you to become less of who you are. They create space for you to become more. Maybe that's what a healthy relationship looks like. Two people becoming more of who they are, not less. Whether you're starting to understand yourself more clearly or learning to do things differently, you're building the skills to grow into the person you're meant to be. Listening is important, but real change happens when you use what you've learned. That's why I've created the See the Pattern, Now What cheat sheet for today's episode. Join my free weekly email community. Each week, I'll help you name the pattern, understand what it looks like, and give you simple next steps to move forward. Find the link in the show notes or visit lessonsforlifewithgrandmakate.com. And if you want more life lessons like this, be sure to follow Lessons for Life with Grandma Kate on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if this episode resonated with you, there's a link in the show notes to show your appreciation. Either way, I am grateful for you being here. If no one has told you lately, everything will be okay. Tomorrow is a new day, and with it comes new hope. As I conclude this episode, I must state that this podcast is designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. While I bring my experience as a parent and grandparent, it's essential that you know I am not a licensed therapist. This podcast is not a substitute for professional advice from a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Got it? Awesome. Until next time, what is one thing you are grateful for?